Welcome to Needles and Sprouts.
Welcome to Needles and Sprouts, episode 6.
Cease.
I'm Whitney,
I'm Tori.
and we like to knit things.
I like to make things.
Make things.
Actually, I like knitting.
Yeah, knitting's fun, huh?
It's like very relaxing. I've made it into like part of my bedtime routine.
Yes.
Like as I do it when my kids are falling asleep, and then I can't bring myself to do anything else because I'm like in a relaxed state.
Yeah.
Which is maybe not great for like the laundry, but
That's okay.
then I just go and knit. It's supposed
Laundry
to be really good to
can
calm down your brain.
Yeah, laundry can wait.
That's not just me. That's like research, I think.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I didn't think this far ahead.
I like Vlogmas.
Vlogmas is over.
It was so fun.
It was a challenge that I did.
He's trying to steal my
I
project.
did it, and I'm glad that I have that documentation of Christmas 2018 in the books.
Because then your kids are little. So
Yeah.
this Christmas, last year, my then 6-year-old, everything was, oh cute. And this year she's 7. It was kind of just, I don't know if she's gotten less grateful, but she's kind of like,
Not as excited.
or I knew I was going to get this. And I was like, no, you didn't. Or, I don't know. It's just like, it wasn't as much fun as when she was like, oh, cute. Maybe the stuff wasn't as cute. I don't know. But anyway, Christmas is fun. Oh, can we talk about some sprouty stuff for a minute?
Sprouts. Yes, sprouts. Because we like to grow things.
Yeah, we like to grow.
Let me take my sweater off. Is that weird?
So sprouts.
Sprouts.
And Whitney introduced me to roses a while ago. I have always known about roses. So my grandfather was a rose gardener. My mom does roses. But I was like, I don't want to do roses. The first house we lived in when I was married, it had like overgrown roses, like huge. And there was like every thorny bush ever. But Whitney has reconvinced me that I like roses. So I have planted one rose from Whitney. And recently I was really sad because there's a guy a breeder that she really liked named David Austin.
David Austin.
Who passed away. So I'd like to ask you, Whitney, on camera, what is your favorite David Austin rose?
Oh, okay. I would have
They're
to say
really beautiful colors.
I think my favorite David Austin rose. It's probably Golden Celebration.
Is that an orange one?
It's yellow.
Yellow.
It is so easy to grow, and mine is big and beautiful, and I love yellow roses.
And it's big.
It's a climber, or it can be. You can train it to be smaller. You just cut it down, keep it small, but it'll send out really long shoots and start.
It's going to be high maintenance if you don't want to let it calm.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, you just cut it back a couple times throughout the season. It's not like, I don't know.
I feel like that's.
But I don't mind it because the branch. It's not. The thing about David Austin roses is they're not really rigid like a hybrid tea. The branches tend to drape, and then the flowers just kind of hang off them. And there's something so charming about that. Just so lovely.
See, I thought I was setting you up. I thought you were going to say Lady of Shalott.
Lady of Shalott is another absolute favorite.
Okay, so when I think she showed me Lady of Shalott, or her and another friend were talking about it one day, and I was like, ugh. But I recently went and re-looked at it, and I was like, that is really
pretty.
nice.
The thing about Lady of Shalott is she's very changeable depending on the temperature.
Oh, really?
So my very first blooms in spring are always more like lighter pink, and then kind of turn yellow. And then as it gets warmer, they get more and more yellowy. And
are they
more
not
orangey.
orange?
And then more orangey, coppery kind of color.
So Whitney,
Will
you give me a stem of your rose so I can try to make a rose bush?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's not illegal because I'm not selling it to you.
You're not selling it.
If I were to sell it to you, that would be illegal.
Oh, maybe we shouldn't document this then.
Oh.
Maybe you can take this part out. But she gave me another one of her roses. Roses are really cool. You can take a bud. You can take like 6 inches. You dip it in rooting hormone, either the powder or the liquid, and you can put it in the ground and it will root and you can get a rose bush. Most of my mom's, 50% of my mom's roses are from my grandpa's. Done that. So it's a really cool way to get, because rose bushes can be pricey. However, I am strongly considering getting a Roald Dahl rose because Roald Dahl is one of my favorite people.
Mine too.
And it was an orange rose, which I love orange. We have already covered that. All right.
Yeah, rolled doll is a very beautiful rose.
It's an orange one as well.
Well, it's yellowy orange. So if you
Yeah.
gotta be prepared for yellow as well.
I was a little worried about that. Okay, let's go back to knitting.
Okay.
You had a hat.
Should I? Oh yeah, I'm gonna talk about my hat. So I have a finished project. I cast this on Christmas Day.
Oh, did you buy that? You didn't make that?
I didn't make this. No, I bought it. But it is handmade by a lady on Etsy. I actually cast this on before Christmas using the pink. Oh, I forgot to bring the yarn that I used to show. Because I used 2 yarns. I held a strand of very pink mohair.
Oh, you
with-
showed it on your Vlogmas
Yeah, I showed
day
it.
25.
Yeah, I showed it on the end of Vlogmas, the Christmas day. So I cast it on using a blue and the pink, and I didn't like the colors, and I changed to this more lavendery. So there it is up close. This is the Tree Line Trail hat by Jonena Lyndsley, who is River and Fur. And I bought the pom-pom from Trappings and Trinkets on Etsy.
It looks amazing.
It
Can't
is-
tell how amazing it is, but it's like fuzzy and highlighted.
Yeah, I love the way it
Not fuzzy, that's not the right word. It's not fuzzy, it's delicate fluff.
It is. So the mohair silk adds just the fluff, but also the shiny, because
Well,
silk is very
this
shiny.
is the delicate
and then this, I was telling Ivan I wanted to add this pom-pom. He's like, the color it just doesn't match. And I'm like, no, it contrasts. It doesn't match, it contrasts. And I love it. Like, I absolutely love it. He made me feel doubtful, but I was like, no, I'm gonna do it.
It looks awesome.
And I love it. And I'm gonna keep wearing it because my hair is awful today anyway, so I'm just gonna keep it on.
Okay, cool.
So this is, yeah, I love this hat. I'm very pleased with it. That is that my only finished? That's my only knitting finished object.
I want to know if you finished the socks you gave your dad for Christmas. You told him, I'll finish those before you leave.
I didn't.
Thought that was very ambitious.
I did not finish them, but he has not left yet.
Oh, I thought you meant that party. I was like, whoa!
No, I meant like
Okay.
he's here for a month, but he actually leaves on Tuesday, and I haven't knit on them at all.
Oh man,
Sorry, Dad.
that's awesome.
Won't be finished before you leave.
All right, I was going to show some of my finish, but they're all sewing projects because I did them for Christmas.
I have 2 sewing projects as well,
Okay, cool.
but only one with me. Yeah, go ahead.
So this was kind of a fun project. It's just a tied fleece blanket, which I did to involve my younger kids to make a present for their youngest kid. But what I really liked with this is so it has 2 sides, and then I wanted practice quilting. So quilting is sewing 2 layers together, and fleece is relatively easy. It's hard to mess up. So what I did, because there were these really big things, I quilted these big planets and suns. So on the back, instead of
There's
just being
circles.
a boring, it's slightly less boring.
And you can see on the,
And it kind of gives it some texture on the front.
yeah, you can see on the
You're
front.
showing like the worst one. That was my first one that
Well,
I
no,
did.
it looks good. Look
No,
at
you
that
can-
happy little world.
But it's lumpy. It's lumpy.
No, it
this
looks
one's
good.
much nicer. Let's
Okay.
see if you can see this one. I don't know if you can see it. But it gives it a little more depth than a normal fleece. I usually make my kids, I attempt to make my kids a strip quilt, but it hasn't, for this last one, it hasn't happened. So fleece was a good solution. And he has a matching pillowcase,
It's really cute.
but he's taken the pillowcase away. But it's,
Does he love it?
he does, and he sleeps a lot better. We were wondering because he still just had his baby-sized blankets, and he wakes up every night. But since he's gotten this, that's warmer and fits the whole bed, he stays in bed
It's probably heavier,
a
like
little
the
bit
weight
better.
on it.
Yeah, it's much heavier than
Like weighted
fleece
blankets.
I have a weighted blanket, P.S., and it is
Is it
fantastic.
amazing?
We can talk about that another time, though.
Yeah.
So that's one of mine. Do you have one of your finished sewing?
I do. Well, I just want to mention, I don't have it with me. It is I made a quilt for Ivan for Christmas. It is a jeans quilt, like a denim quilt. Well, it's not all actual denim. Some of it's fake denim.
Because it's stretchy? Is that why you say that?
Yeah. But anyway, it's basically the first thing I ever sewed. If you want to see it, watch my Vlogmas Christmas Eve, so the 24th. And I kind of show it a little bit. My
It's on the 25th one, too.
Yeah, it's on the 25th one too, but I pan around so you can actually kind of see the whole thing.
Did you quilt it or did you just piece it?
You know, I pieced it and I quilted it.
So did you
that was
do the stitch in the ditch?
Yes, and it's a queen size quilt, and that was a
and
beast.
It's denim, so
and I was like arm wrestling my sewing machine to get it through, and I tell you
have a good sewing machine of it.
And then I made my own binding, and then I hand sewed.
You did?
Yeah, and then I hand sewed the binding on the back.
Well, I'm really impressed.
Yeah, my hand was all cramping up, but I couldn't talk about it. But I'm like, oh, my hand. And on like Christmas Eve, my mom was giving me a hand massage, and Ivan, the next day when he opened his present, he's like, "That's why you were getting the hand massage." I was like, "Yeah, because my hand was from hand sewing."
That's really impressive. I have only ever just sewn layers together to skip the binding, mostly because I haven't really quilted. So that's pretty good.
I followed a tutorial by Jacqueline Salem of Brooklyn Knit Folk. She has a knitting podcast. She had a 10-part tutorial of how to do just a really basic patchwork quilt. So I followed her. I watched all her YouTube videos a couple times, and that's what I basically followed it because I didn't know what I was doing. So
yeah, I haven't done. So Grace was doing my Grace is my oldest. She was doing a practice quilt, and then we need to put binding on it. And I cut out the binding, and it has been sitting there for months because I'm like, it's like sometimes those projects you just don't ever do because you're just like,
yeah. So anyway, that was my big.
Good job.
Sewing. I have one more, but you can. It's small.
Okay, I also made these, which is hard to tell. Can you guys guess what's in here? Anyone with kids? This is a Lego bag. I probably should have taken the Legos out, actually. Well, we're gonna open
I wanted to just dig through, but
so this is a big bag. Did someone tie it?
It looks like it's been tied.
Okay, so it basically turns itself into a giant mat. So then they can play.
Welcome to Needles and Sprouts episode 6 part 2. Me and Tori tried recording and we got about halfway through when we had some technical difficulties with the camera, the memory card. So I just thought I'd pop on here and show my finished objects so I don't get too far behind because I don't want to talk too much the next time we're able to record. So I thought I'd just finish showing kind of some of the things that I'm working on. And just a little disclaimer about when Tori and I record, it's kind of a difficult thing to do. We do have 5 children between the two of us, and we can only record during the day. That's the only time that's feasible for both of us to record. So she has 2 at home, and I have my 2 really little ones. And I know they make noise, but there's nothing we can do about it. I try my best to edit it out. And this is just a passion thing for us, really. It's just something to do for fun. As much as I try to make it high quality as I can, I know that with the children, it can be difficult to do that. So that's just a little bit of disclaimer. Please stick with us anyway if you like what we're sharing with our knitting and sewing and crocheting and gardening and all those sorts of things. So please stick with us. When we finished recording, where that video cut off was a few days ago. And in the meantime, I have another finished object. You won't have seen this finished object since episode 1. These are Christmas socks for my dad. So, that's making him look quite... These are much more tan brown than these maybe are showing up, but they're just some socks. The yarn is Sherry Iris Designs. I believe the colorway is Coffee at Luke's. I don't keep my tags, or I try to keep my tags, but I can never find them when I need them. My yarn ball tags with the colorway and the base. I'm thinking this is something like an 80/20 superwash merino nylon. I'm not 100% sure. But Coffee at Luke's. Here's the other one. Both socks. This is just a 3x1 rib that I did. So knit 3, purl 1. Really simple. I thought it was kind of masculine man type socks that my dad would appreciate. And you can see I didn't do it on the bottom of the foot. I only did it on the top and not on the bottom here. On Christmas Day, I gifted one of these socks to my dad, and it was only finished to like here. And so since since Christmas technically, but really I only started these a couple days ago. I finished this sock and a whole new sock in less than a week. Well, about a week, which is pretty good for me. Like I've been chugging trying to get these done because I know they're really late. And the first pair of socks that I ever made my dad, he wears all the time. He wears them every single week to church. He's very, very knitworthy, and he deserves and needs another pair of socks, and I need to get these in the mail to him because he lives in Ohio, where I'm from, in fact. So, socks for dad. No pattern, just 3x1 rib, 72 stitches. I do 20 rounds of rib, 90 rounds of the leg, then I do a fish lips kiss heel, and then just a regular, your kind of standard decrease toe. So, yay, finished object. My next work in progress is called Frosted Leaves. It's by Lisa Haynes, H-A-N-N-E-S, put it here, / Maliha Designs. It is a shawl, and this is what I have so far. Whoops. This is what I have so far. So far it's just garter stitch. The shawl kind of has 3 sections. You have a garter stitch section, and then you have this really cool almost cabled twisted stitch patterned section, and then you have a ribbing section. So it makes, it's just barely asymmetrical. It's barely not symmetrical. Because you can keep going and make each section basically as big as you want each section, to use up whatever yarn you want. At least that's my understanding in this first part of the pattern. So I just have some garter stitch so far. It's just super easy. The yarn I'm using is Knit Picks Paragon. It has this really cool spin to it. It almost looks like it's got like a tight, like a thin string around another big string, but it's not. It's actually 2-ply. The colorway is Kenai. So Paragon, Knit Picks Paragon. This is a sport weight yarn, and it is 50% fine merino wool, 25% baby alpaca, and 25% mulberry silk. And it's really soft. It almost has like a, I guess that's the silk in it, giving it almost like a, I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to say plasticky because it's not plasticky, but it's definitely not animal based is the best way I can describe it. It almost, and this makes it sound bad because it's not, because it's really nice, but it almost reminds me of a plastic yarn, of like an acrylic, almost, where it has that squeak to it, but it doesn't at all. It doesn't have that squeak to it that it, you know what I mean, when you're knitting with acrylic and it's like almost squeaky because it's plastic. This, it feels a little bit different, but it's so much softer, and it just feels a lot more luxurious, like a luxury type yarn, which it kind of is. Anyway, I'm liking it a lot. I'm excited for this shawl. I don't know if the camera isn't capturing this color very well. This is one of my favorite colors. I knit a lot in this color. And my next work in progress is a completely different yarn, but it's almost the exact same color, I realized later. Look, this is the yarn my next work in progress is knit out of. Look, it's almost the same color. So, let me show you that one. My next work in progress is a sweater. It is Hague by Michelle Wang. It's also out of the Michelle Wang's capsule collection for Brooklyn Tweed Winter 2017. It's the same book, the same collection that my Palmer cardigan is out of, the same, so they're both Michelle Wang. And I have every intention of knitting my way through that book, except for one. There's one sweater that I don't care for, that I don't see myself ever making, but every other pattern in there I intend to make. So this is Hague, and let me show it to you. It's cabled. Isn't that pretty? And it's got this, I forget what they call it. What do they call this? In the pattern, this patterning right here is called welts, but I know welts is a different technique as well. So this is kind of like faux welts. It's basically just garter and stockinette ridges. That's all it is. And I really love this pattern. The only thing is, can you see through this? See how see-through this is? I think I didn't do a gauge swatch. I just wanted to cast something on. I went with the suggested needle size, and I was like, if it ends up being too big, that's fine, because it's supposed to have positive ease, like 4 to 6 inches of positive ease anyway. So I was like, it's fine if it ends up big, and but I was thinking it would end up small, but I don't really, these are US size 11 8mm needles, and that's the suggested needle size. But I think I'm gonna go down a whole needle size. I think I'm gonna rip this out because I don't like the fabric that it's creating. It's just way too open. And at the beginning I thought, oh, it'll be fine, I'll get over it, but I'm not really liking how open this is. I want it to be, it's just too loose. I'm not digging it. My heart isn't in it. So I think I might actually rip I'm almost done with the front. I have maybe like 3 more inches and I'd be done with the front. But I'm gonna rip back, I'm pretty sure, and go down in needle size so it'll be a little bit tighter gauge. So that's a little bit disheartening, but at the same time I'm really enjoying it. Like I enjoy the cable pattern, and it's just kind of a fun, no pressure knit. Not that any of my knits are filled with pressure, but I've realized that I need to relax a little bit when it comes to the pressure I put on my finished objects to be not perfect, because I'm not a perfectionist, but I just have a lot of fear when it comes to overall fit and gauge. I don't know what it is. I just can't seem to ever get gauge correctly, or my garment overall never seems to fit. And I'm terrified of it being too small, but pretty much every sweater that I've knit is too big for me. So I'm trying to learn from that, and I don't know what I'm trying to say, except that I wanted to cast on something where I didn't have the pressure of it having to fit a certain way, and since this one has positive ease, that's why I didn't swatch. This is pretty loose. Anyway, I'm not really making any sense. I'm gonna rip it out. I have a swatch to share. I don't generally talk about swatches, but in our last episode 5, I talked about my oil slick sweater. I kind of stole that term from Caroline of Dunderknit, Caroline of Knitting Vicariously podcast. She's knitting No Frills sweater, maybe, by PetiteKnit, where she's holding a yarn double with a mohair based yarn, and she's holding a black yarn mixed with this like multicolored dark variegated yarn, so it looks kind of like an oil slick, like that sheen with all the colors in it. And I was like, I want one of those. So I ordered some yarn, and this is my swatch. When I got the yarn, I thought, this isn't gonna turn out quite the way I think it is. I'm gonna swatch anyway, and as I started swatching, was like, this is awesome. I love it. I've never been so excited to knit a swatch. I don't know if I've ever been excited to knit a swatch as when I was starting to knit this. But as I got more and more into it, I'm like, this is not working the way I love it. I still think it's interesting. I liked it a lot more before I blocked it, and I don't know if that's a mohair thing with the mohair. I don't know how I feel about this. I was going to knit the Stockholm sweater. I think that's it, the Stockholm sweater. I'll put it down here. It's very similar to the no frills sweater, but it is shaped just a little bit differently. But you're supposed to hold, I think the pattern calls to hold 2 strands of mohair together, but I'm doing just a fingering weight with the mohair. Let me show you the yarn. So this is just some black yarn. I got it super cheap. I got it super cheap from Craftsy. Cloudborne Fibers. It's 100% Highland wool, so whatever that means. I think it comes from South America. And then I ordered this yarn on Etsy from a dyer in Scotland. She is Crookston Crafts, and this is my mohair. The colorway is, I wrote down how I think the colorway is supposed to be pronounced because it's a castle in Scotland. Crathes. Crathes? Crathes? C-R-A-T-H-E-S. How do you pronounce that? I don't know, I'm not Scottish. Actually, I am. I am a lot Scottish. But I've never been to Scotland, and anyway. So this is the yarn. Isn't it pretty? Here's what it looks like caked up. And I'm just thinking this might be too light for the black yarn. And I'm trying to think of a different colored yarn that it would look really nice held double with. Even though I started out loving the swatch, I'm not loving it so much anymore for that pattern. And I also want to make the Spellman top by Tristan of Dragon Horde Yarn. I think that's coming out in February, very soon. And that's also a fingering weight mohair held double. So maybe this will go for that. I have a sweater's quantity of this black yarn, so I need to make something out of it. Maybe I'll just make a black sweater, because black is one of my favorite colors. So those are my works in progress right now. I have a little bit of yarn stash acquisition that if you'll indulge me, I'll like to share. Miss Babs was having a 20% off sale at the New Year, or a customer appreciation type sale. And I've only ever knit with Miss Babs Estrelita, and I love it. That's her sparkle base. It's 92% superwash merino wool and 8% lurex, and lurex is the sparkle. And I used it in my Palmer cardigan. It's striped. That's where I used it before, and I loved it. I loved it. So I have built quite the stash of Miss Babs Estrelita because I love the sparkle so much. And I ordered some more, and here they are. Now, when I ordered these online, they looked, and with the bright lighting, they do look a lot different, but in just kind of normal, everyday lighting, these two look the same, almost the same, and these two look almost the same, when in reality, they're 4 different colorways. So they're all wild irises, which are her one-of-a-kind colorways. That's the darkest. And then that's the next one. So these two next to each other. See, here in the bright lighting, they actually do look quite different. Maybe when they knit up, you'll be able to see how different they are too. But in reality, they look super similar, and I was a little bit disappointed that they do look that way. And then these are the other two. See, yeah, this one's looking a lot more pink, which it is. I made this intentional fade thing happen because I really like the fade. So that's some Miss Babs that I got. And then I saw on Instagram someone notified that Barocco was having a get a free pattern day, a 1-day thing where you could go on their website and download any of their paid for patterns for free, just one. And I was looking through and I found 2 patterns that I really liked, but there's one in particular that I saw, and something about the yarn and the sweater together, I just thought it was so cool. And that is the Granger cardigan by Amy Christophers. And I'm not someone who normally, when I see a pattern photo, I almost always look at a sweater and imagine it in a different yarn. I never really consider using the exact same yarn, or even the same colorway that they use in the pattern. But for some reason, this colorway with this yarn, I was like, I have to have that. I was looking everywhere for the yarn, and I could have ordered it online, but I know that one of my local yarn stores carries some Barocco, and I was like, I don't think I've seen this yarn there before, but I'll call him up and ask him. And they didn't carry it, but he says because we are a stalker of Barocco, we can order it in for you. And the cost of ordering it in would have been the exact same as if I'd ordered it online, only I wouldn't have to pay for shipping. So I thought, hey, I'll do that. I'll support my local yarn store and I won't have to pay for shipping, and it'll cost the same amount. So this is the yarn, and it's kind of crazy. This is not yarn that I would see on the shelf and be like, yeah, I need a sweater out of that. Like, not even close. This isn't even yarn that I would look at and think anything about except pass. Normally, if I saw this, I'd just skim right past it. But, because I would never have known just looking at it that it stripes in these big kind of inconsistent color blocking stripes. And I love that. I just love the way that it stripes up, at least according to the pattern photo. And so I ordered a sweater's quantity of this. Oh, this is Barocco Pixel. It is 100% superwash wool. It's a DK weight, and the colorway, it doesn't say on the tag, but the colorway is Clove. And I hope I'm gonna love it as much as I love the picture. And I really like the cardigan too. It's a slimmer fitting one, which I'm trying to get a sweater that actually fits me. As I said earlier, none of my sweaters fit me very well. They are all too big. So I'm trying to get a slimmer fitting sweater that will actually fit me. And the model in the picture also has red hair, and it's called Granger, so you know it's supposed to be Hermione. And it does look very Hermione-esque, like just kind of that hand knit, multicolored, not a fancy sweater. And it has these like little teeny tiny pockets in front, which I think is perfect because I take chapstick with me everywhere, and I always have chapstick in my pocket, but I have several pairs of pants that don't have pockets, and it makes me crazy. It's hard to find women's nice pants with pockets in them, and it makes me crazy. Anyway, that's a rant for another time. But I love the sweater, and that's heading to the top of my queue because I really want to see how this knits up for me as opposed to the pattern photo. And I really think it would be a good layering item for spring, which we're slowly heading toward. Can spring come faster, please? Please, spring, come a little bit faster. Me and my girls are going crazy in winter, stuck inside, and I can't wait till spring and summer comes where we can go outside and just play all day in the backyard. That sounds nice. I think the last thing that I wanted to just talk about, some little knitting news, was I got to go hang out at Tristan of Dragon Horde Yarns studio, and she had a little knitting day. So I got to go hang out and meet some new knitters, and it was fun. And it's really cool seeing her studio and seeing all of her yarn. They're so beautiful, just seeing her yarn in the cubbies and being surrounded by it. And having the opportunity to shop from it if you wanted. Which I did want to, but I have so much stash that I'm trying to work through, so I'm I was very good. It's strangely easier for me to pass on yarn when I see it in person than it is online. Like online, it's so much easier for me to buy yarn than it is in person. It's a lot easier for me to say no in person than it is online, because online it's like doo, 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 I push a couple buttons, oh, and just a few days later there's yarn on your doorstep, which is pretty cool. When I first showed up, I was a little bit later than everyone else, and I just kind of went and sat down, and I was sitting there and people were kind of chatting, but not really. It was a little bit awkward. And I'm sitting there and I look at the girl. I was sitting on the floor because all the seats were taken, and so I look at the girl on the couch next to me and I was like, am I the only one here who doesn't know anyone's names or who doesn't know anybody? And she's like, no, I don't know anyone either. And I was like, oh good. And so we started chatting just a little bit. People were just kind of chatting in their own little groups a little bit, and no one was really chatting with each other. And I was like, I know this isn't my event, but can we like do introductions or something? Because I don't know anyone here, and can we do that? So eventually we did go around and everyone introduced themselves, which was a lot of fun. And then after that, we were having much more cross group discussion. There were about a dozen people there. And it was really fun. It was really fun to meet some new knitters. Most of them had come from Salt Lake, which is north of here. And it was nice to meet some new people, and I got to chat with Christy, who's Tristan's mom, Christy of Yarn Cafe Creations. I got to chat with her a little bit. We chatted about some of her patterns and her yarn, and it was fun, about her new My Little Pony yarn, which is so pretty. And one of the girls there, her name is Annika, she just spits out, I started the Harry Potter knit and crochet house cup on Ravelry. And my jaw just dropped. Like the next person started going, and I was like, wait. You did what? So for anyone who doesn't know, the Harry Potter knit and crochet house cup on Ravelry has been going for like 10 years or something like that. It's a super intense knitting challenge, and it goes, I think it goes 3 months at a time. Anyway, it's like a thing, and you have to be committed to do it, and it's been going for a long time, and it's very well known. It's all for imaginary points, but these people are invested, and you do not start unless you are committed. And it's always kind of been in the back of my mind, like, do you want to join the Harry Potter House Cup? And I'm like, I work really well under pressure, but I also have had life changes with my 2 children in the last 2 years, and I definitely would have done it before I had children, but now that I do, it's like, I just don't want to commit to that. But anyway, it was cool to meet her, and she had some friends there, and it was fun to meet knitters in real life, because that's pretty much the only time that has ever really happened for me. And it was like a little bit like finding your people, even though I didn't know anyone and we're all very different people anyway. It was just nice to sit and knit and know that if you're talking about yarn or a podcaster, that no one's gonna look at you crazy or like not have any idea what you're talking about. Like everyone knew. I've said, I was knitting a sock, and I was like, this is yarn from Amy of Stranded podcast, and they were like, oh, everyone knows Amy, because who doesn't know Amy? Well, pretty much anyone else in my normal life who I talk to doesn't know Amy or anyone else in the knitting world. So that was a lot of fun. Hopefully me and Tori will be able to record again. I know she didn't get to finish talking about some of the things she was working on. I know she's working on a scarf for her daughter. She's continuing to practice her knitting, which is fantastic. And hopefully we will see you guys soon. Okay, bye!